As any of you who either have a wet basement or have no way to get from your front yard to your backyard know, the grading and drainage around a property is really important. You can start fresh with brand new construction and your grade seems to work out just perfectly. Over time, of course, in an older neighborhood particularly, you're going to end up with some settling, some low spots, some places where that grade is just not working out right. So, one of the most important things for you to consider as you are either renovating a landscape, purchasing a home, looking at making some changes is, does that water run downhill in the direction you want it, at the speed you want it, at the slope you want it, and end up in the places where you want it to land? This is important not only for stormwater runoff, of course, but for just general, gentle Mother Nature rain. If you're fortunate, you may have a survey that shows topographic lines on it. This is most likely to occur if it's new construction, if it's sometimes has to be fairly high-end residential, or it is something you're going to have to pay for if you want that surveyor to give you exactly property lines, measurements, and that change in grade. Those grade lines are shown as a 1-foot contour, and they tell you, once you learn how to read them, which direction that water flows. They also show you the slope. The closer together those lines are, the steeper the slope is. That will mean either a hill or, in some cases, a retaining wall. The further apart those lines are, the flatter the property is, and sometimes flatter might be harder to work with than steep, because a flat site is going to end up with what we call bird bathing. You're going to have some standing water. If you're not fortunate enough to have a survey, you're going to have to either get one if you really need to be concise in your grading plan, or certainly learn how to look at that landscape and then figure out how you want to change that grade so that it does work. One of the things that we encounter in landscape and in grading is people want a berm. And they think about that berm as being an object as opposed to something that actually flows into the surrounding contours. Doesn't make sense to just essentially pile soil in the front yard and then there it sits. It looks like an object rather than a gently rolling hill in the landscape. And again, if you haven't considered the fact that water has to run downhill away from the places or the structures where you don't want it to pond or settle, you may in fact, by building a berm, have trapped water between the building and the berm itself. So one of the things that I tell people to do is take a scale, take a plumb line, take a level, take a string, and simply slant. Look at, okay, follow the grade. Is the grade doing this toward your home, or is it doing this? For building a berm or a landform, remember that what goes up has to come back down again. And if you don't have the horizontal distance in which you can go as high as you want, you're either going to have to build that berm lower, or you're going to have to consider eliminating a berm altogether. It's a complicated, but it's a very interesting part of landscape design and management and, of course, construction. And one of those areas where the more you either learn about it or the more observant you are, the better job you're going to be able to do to get your landscape graded properly to begin with, so your patios work, your driveways work, your plant material that needs a drink is in the low spots, the plants that don't need a drink are in the high spots.